having vegetables and fruits in the dish, it helps us a lot to generate a lot of different colors. So where does that color come from? It is coming from the plant where they have different kind of organelles or small particles inside the cells, which we call chloroplasts or chromoplasts, and of course also in the vacuole. Now, usually this kind of color, they have pigmented molecules in these particles. And what they have is that, remember what about light? In fact, we see something which is green. It's not because they are emitting green light, but what actually they are is that they absorb all the blue and the red, and they reflect the green. And so when we have something which is red, they absorb the green and the blue, and they reflect the red. So when we say that in these organelles, they have some pigment, such as chlorophyll. The chlorophyll is green because they absorb all the red and blue light, and then reflect only the green one. Now, and in fact, how are these organelles like? For example, on the left-hand side, in fact, we do have some orange vegetables. What is it? It's carrot. When you look at the cells, they have a lot of all these small particles in them. And in fact, those are the particles, the organelle that contribute to the orange color. How about a green plant? Well, you look like this. In fact, they are made of cells that they are densely populated with all these green chloroplasts. That's why we see them as green. Now, so therefore, when we start talking about pigment, I want to cover a few of them. The first one is chlorophyll, that usually we associate with the vegetable, which are green. And of course, there are also other ones, such as the orange, red one, the carotenoid. And also we have the purple red or the pale yellow, such as anthocyanins and the anthocyanins. And of course, at the end, we also have the red and yellow betaine. Now, so what we have is that let's look at how chlorophyll gives us a green color. Now, this seems to be a very complicated structure, but I don't need you to really remember what the structure is like. I simply want you to remember two things. One is, on the left-hand side, you may find that there is a very long chain of carbons extending out. I simply call that a tail. That particular tail, because having the long chain of this carbon connected to it, they are very hydrophobic, and therefore they are very fat soluble. And so what happens is that this particular tail allows this molecule to be anchored on the cell membrane, which is made of lipid. Okay, and on the right hand side, what you see is that there is like a flat, like a planar-like structure like this. In this, we have this structure which we call porphyrin, and this porphyrin, in it, I want you to focus inside. There is a metal ion, which is magnesium, and in fact, this is the magnesium that gives us the particular nature of this molecule to emit the green or reflect the green color. Now, usually, this kind of chlorophyll, they are found in the chloroplasts that I indicated to you earlier. There are small particles inside the green plants. So what they have is that they would be easily altered in terms of their property if you subject this green plant to the cooking. For example, you can have this particular tail being taken out, or you can change the content of that porphyrin. Now, in fact, if you focus on the porphyrin, I've told you that this is the magnesium ion that gives us that green color. If you change it to the other ion, such as you put copper or so, you can easily change the porphyrin to give a different color. And in fact, that is the way that how people generate a lot of different dyes. Now, what happened, as I said, if this molecule, during the cooking, it got modified. So, for example, the tail is removed. So, if the tail is removed, as I said, the tail is required for the anchorage of this molecule onto the membrane. So now it's no longer anchored on the membrane. So now what it means is that porphyrin become water soluble. When it's water soluble, what can be done? That means it will be released from the cell. So in such a case, they would all go into the cell. And what would cleave this particular long chain or the tail is at acidic condition or an alkaline condition, all will result in that. So when this tail has been removed, this porphyrin would go outside the cell and become water soluble, and they stay there. And so also there are enzymes called chlorophyllase which help to cleave that. Now, so what happened is that if this molecule, this porphyrin, the green part, get released, what will be the outcome? So if you're cooking some vegetable and this particular tail gets cleaved and the porphyrin goes into the solution. So that's on the left before you cook the vegetable, and on the right after you cook the vegetable, you find that the soup turned green because all the porphyrin now goes into the medium. Now, also, as I pointed out, well, using acid, we can also cleave this particular tail. So what happened is that, well, we can use enzyme and all this, we can remove this magnesium ion from the center of the molecule. But on the other hand, when it's acidic, this magnesium ion can also be kicked out of that porphyrin. Why? Because when something is acidic, such as you put it in vinegar or some citrus food or so, then these kind of acidic medium, they will have a lot of hydrogen ion. This hydrogen ion can easily come in, they kick out the magnesium, and with the magnesium kicks out, they lost that particular color. And so even though it is water soluble in the acid, even though the tail has been cleaved, the porphyrin now goes in the solution. But since they don't have the magnesium associated with it, so therefore they still they are clear. They are not giving any specific color. Now, so to use that as an illustration, you remember that I was showing to you that how a vegetable, when I put it in a acidic or the tap water or in the alkaline condition, how did they look like? You remember that when I say that, well, if you put it in a tap water, they look normal as what we see most of the time in the kitchen. But if you cook them in the vinegar, you may notice that this particular plant, in fact, they are more yellowish. Why is that? No matter whether this porphyrin from the chlorophyll is released from the plant or whether they stay inside the plant, the magnesium ion has been kicked out. So therefore, a lot of the chlorophyll, they lost their color. So they are no longer as green. And if you remember that when I show you this particular plant or vegetable, I cook it at vinegar, I show you that it's still very rigid. But on the other hand, do you notice that its color is relatively yellowish? And this yellowish color is because of the acid or the hydrogen ion goes into the porphyrin to kick out the magnesium. Okay? Now, having that, then we'll say, well, would there be other causes that would lead to the dulling of the color? And the answer is yes. Sometimes when we cook vegetable without water, such as stir fry, or sometimes you can try that, you can cook vegetables by simply putting them into the microwave. These plants, when they are raised to a temperature higher than 60 degrees, what they find is that these kind of like a chloroplasts, they will be damaged. Okay, the chlorophyll would then be exposed to whatever soup in the vacuole inside the cell. And remember what happened? In the vacuole, usually they are very acidic. So this own lateral acid, when they encounter chlorophyll, they also have the hydrogen ion to come in to kick out the magnesium. So therefore, color will be dulled. And more than that, in fact, sometimes when we freeze certain vegetable, we put them into make a pickle vegetables or so, dehydration, or even for the vegetable that they are dying or they're deteriorating, most of the time it will lead to the damage of the chloroplast and expose all this chlorophyll to the natural acid inside the cell. And in all those cases, you'll find that plants or vegetables, when they get old, they also turn to be yellowish. Now, so therefore, understanding this is important for us to know how we will be able to keep certain vegetable green when you want to present them in a dish. So now I'm going to introduce to you a few tricks which can be used in your kitchen. For example, we can say that when you try to cook some vegetable, try not to put the cover on. Why is that? Because when you're cooking them, if you take off the cover, these plants, when they are being damaged, they will release the acid. Some of this acid, in fact, they're volatile. So if you open the cover, essentially this acid, when they comes out, they can easily vaporize, and then they will not be staying with the plant. And if they're not staying in the plant, they don't have enough hydrogen ion to compete for the magnesium. And so therefore, this porphyrin group, they're still green. We also say that we can cook these plants in the alkaline water because in the alkaline water, they have fewer hydrogen ion. They're not acidic. So therefore, they don't have the hydrogen ion to compete with the binding of this porphyrin with the magnesium. So as a result, then you keep them green. And you remember that a moment ago that we showed that how you cook the vegetable in the baking soda solution. That certainly they are still very, very green. Now, of course, when we cook them in alkaline, you understand that the texture gets changed. They become very mushy. And also, this parallel cooking, sometimes they destroy the vitamins in the plant, including the oxidation of the vitamin C also. So therefore, maybe it will destroy some of the vitamins or nutrients. More than that, in fact, sometimes we say if you want to cook a vegetable, you dip them into a pot with large amount of water. Why large amount of water? Because when you have large amount of water, so even for the vegetable, they release some of the acid, but they will be quickly diluted away by the water medium. And so therefore, they don't have enough hydrogen ion around. So on the other hand, there are other tricks too. We say that, well, you can cook the plants for a very short period of time, within 5 minutes. You notice that a lot of people, when they cook plants, they would simply like to put the vegetable in boiling water for a short period of time, and that we call it blanching. And simply like a blanching process, what it allows you to do is that you get the plant cooked, but then you don't leave it there for long enough so that the decoloration would take place. Now, of course, we can also say that these are really practices that when you cook vegetable, don't leave them there for long. Whenever it's ready, serve them right away, or sometimes put them on ice so that you prevent the heating process to continue while you're taking that dish to the table. And of course, we often would recommend people try not to put acid together with vegetables. For example, when you're trying salad, even though you want to put it, simply put it right before you eat it, instead of leave it there for an hour. And sometimes the way that we help to eliminate that possibility is that we even coat the vegetable with some oil. So think about that. When you're having all the salad dressing, a lot of them, in fact, they have very rich content of various type of oil, such as like olive oil. So that would help to shield the vegetable from direct contact with the acid. So with all this, essentially, you have some good ways to keep this vegetable green and they look beautiful.